What's going on, guys? It's GS Luke back again for another golf preview, this time for the 2021 US Open at Torrey Pines in California. So we're back again with this preview after last week's Palmetto Championship, which wasn't the most exciting field, but we ended up coming through with some really good picks last week, getting all five of our guys through the cut, all of them in the top 20, obviously highlighted by Tyrrell Hatton coming through with the second place finish. So we're looking to build on that momentum from last week, go into the US Open and win some money for you guys. So first of all, if you're new to the channel, I wanted to welcome you guys. I am GS Luke. I am a data-based fantasy sports analyst that uses custom modeling, mathematical modeling, a lot of the stuff that I learned as an electrical engineer to help take on daily fantasy sports. I cover the PGA Tour, NFL, NBA, UFC, and DFS in general to help you guys and pretty much teach you guys the ropes of how to model and whatnot. So if you're looking for that kind of content, make sure to check out my channel. And without further ado, let's get into the preview for this year's 2021 US Open. The field for this week's event is a full field. We're going to be seeing 156 golfers playing, which means we're back to the full field events after some of these invitational fields over the last month. We have also a normal cut line. It'll be the top 65 in ties making the cut. So we're back to seeing a relatively low 6 of 6 percentage given we have the full field. And we're going to be seeing one of the strongest fields in all of golf. We have the top 50 in the official World Golf Ranking, all going to be present. We also have a lot of qualifiers present that are really high quality talents. A lot of guys from the Korn Ferry Tour, including Cameron Young. A lot of the high quality European Tour players, including Garrick Higo, Matt Wallace, Robert McIntyre, etc., that we don't really get to see on a regular basis, but it's always a treat to see them at the majors. So overall, we have a deep field, 156 golfers, and absolute chaos going to be ensuing at the US Open. And for this week's course, we have Torrey Pines Municipal Golf Course. Specifically, we are going to be playing the South Course rather than the North Course. The South Course is the course that we see for 3 rounds every single year at the Farmers Insurance Open. They do play the North Course for 1 round, but we won't be seeing that at all this week. And this is going to be a par 71 on the South Course this time around. Typically, it is a par 72, if you remember correctly from the Farmers, but it is a par 71. They took number 6, made it from a par 5, and turned it into a par 4, and it's still going to be playing in the 7,600 yard range, maybe closer to the 7,700 yard range. We'll have to see how they decide to set it up. This is a William Bell design with an average green size of 5,000 square feet. That makes it one of the smallest green sizes on tour. We also have 82 bunkers on site, relatively more than the typical PGA Tour event, in Poa Anua greens. Now that's a big one right there, the Poa Anua greens. These are surfaces that are hard to putt on. They're very unstable. They're not as consistent as some of the other grass types. And as a result, you have some guys that are going to struggle mightily this week. You're looking for some of the better putters on tour. A lot of those guys are able to make the adjustment, but some of the more poor putters on tour are definitely going to struggle. We're going to be looking at that in the analysis here in the next section. Now for our key metrics this week. This section of my videos is where we go over some of the key stats to look out for, especially when trying to identify some of the better golfers this week for Torrey Pines. So coming in at number 3, we have shots gained putting. So like I mentioned with the Poa Anua grass, we're looking for some of the better putters on tour that can make the adjustment on this inconsistent golf course. We're going to be looking at the unpredictable bounces, a lot of balls that just don't get to the hole because of these bounces. So I am also looking for more aggressive putters. You're looking for people that aren't afraid to get the ball to the hole because with this bounces and with the inconsistency, you're going to be leaving a lot of putts short if you're not aggressive. I'm also going to be looking at historical numbers on the POA surface. So because of the shots gained data and because we have been getting more and more of this data over the years, we're now able to identify some of the players that are better on specific grass types when it comes to their putting. Some players are very good on the bent grass, some people are good on Bermuda grass, and some thrive on POA, believe it or not, with that inconsistency. So we're going to be looking at some golfers here in a second when we get to my targets and whatnot that thrive on the POA surface. Another thing to mention with shots gained putting is when we take a look at the US Open in general, and now the US Open does travel from course to course, there's is consistency with the setup though. Shots gained putting is the number 2 correlated stat to success with the US Open. It's also very highly correlated. It's much more highly correlated than it is for most PGA Tour events. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. They obviously set up the course very fast, very firm, and I think that has a lot to do with why putting is so important. At number 2 for our key metrics, we have shots gained approach. Shots gained approach is the beautiful part of golf. It's probably the most vital, most important part of a golf game, and it's a staple in my analysis every single week. So it's not a surprise to see it come in on my key metrics. It may be a surprise to see it come in at number 2 though. My number 1 key stat, which we're going to get to here in a second, is just that important this week, and I just wanted to point that out as it does come in at number 2. And at number 1, we have driving accuracy. This is my number 1 key stat this week, and it has a lot to do with the US Open setup. If you've seen the US Open before, you know what I'm talking about when I say the rough is just plain unfair. A lot of the times, the rough at the US Open ends up becoming the star, not some of the top 5 players in the world or anything like that, because it just eats them alive. They tend to let it grow to about a foot in length. Sometimes it's a foot and a half by the time the golf tournament's over, and you're looking at pretty much wedging out every single time you hit into it. So this week, I'm looking for guys that can keep it in the fairway, players that can avoid that half-stroke penalty if they can. And if we take a look at some of the past champions on the US Open, perhaps except Bryson DeChambeau last year, a lot of them were guys that put themselves in the fairway, hit their irons close, and were able to make their putts. And if we take a look at our key metrics, that's exactly what I'm looking at this week. Now let's hop into the top 6 golfers to target here on DraftKings at the US Open. For the spend up tier, we are going to have Rory Mcllroy, a $9,900 golfer who's coming into the US Open with really, really good form. So while every golfer above him this week in the 10K plus range has something going against him, you got Brooks with the bad knee, Bryson with some bad form, DJ coming off a little bit of a meltdown, Spieth who's not able to hit a fairway even in his great form, or even Rahm coming off COVID. I think Rory McIlroy might be in the best position to come home with a win. He's not played much at Torrey Pines over the years, but every time he's come and played the Farmers Insurance Open, he's made the cut, he's finished in the top 16, so I really like to see that. But what I really love about him this week and why he's my pick to win is his skill set. He comes in, the best driver in the world. People will try to say that Bryson DeChambeau gains more per round. While that's true, I just think there's a lot of beauty in Rory's game, and at a course like this, he's absolutely going to be a better driver of the golf ball. The thing that Rory has that Bryson doesn't is the accuracy off the tee. Rory still hits the ball 330, 340, but he's able to put it in the fairway in a comparable rate to some of the shorter hitters on tour. He's hitting 70, 80% of fairways when he's doing really well. And at a course like Torrey Pines, where you have this lush rough, you have these firm greens and whatnot, that accuracy is going to pay huge dividends. We saw that driving accuracy was my number 1 key metric there, and I really do think that he's going to have a distinct advantage over everyone else in that 10K range. Another thing going for Rory is that his irons have been scorching hot of late. He's gained over 4 strokes in every event he's started over the last month, which is great to see, and he's also made all of his cuts over the last month. Overall, with Rory McIlroy, I don't really see a hole in his game, especially coming into this week at the US Open. I mean, he's got a great around the green game. He's been gaining in every tournament over the last 2 months with his putter. And he's my pick to win, and I also think that he's a great pick for DFS, given his scoring upside with the birdies. Now for my second man in, we have Xander Schauffele, a $9,300 golfer who is undoubtedly going to be chalk this week, but chalk I'm definitely willing to eat. He's coming in as a hometown kid. He grew up just down the road, and he's somebody who has a lot of experience on this course, unlike a lot of the other people in this field. He's said to have played a couple hundred rounds here. Obviously, he hasn't played it in the conditions that we're going to see this week, but I think the familiarity that he has with some of the undulations, with just a lot of the holes in general, is going to help him a lot this week. I also really like his skill set, just like with Rory McIlroy. Xander also does have that elite off the tee game. He has that elite distance. He also has the accuracy, and I really like those kind of drivers this week. And I also like his short game. Xander Schauffele has an even better short game than Rory McIlroy. He's gone to the arm lock method with his putter of late, And I think if he's able to put that together, he's able to get a little bit more consistent with that arm lock method, he's hoisting his first major championship trophy. I mean, if we take a look at his record at the U.S. Open, he's finished in the top six in every event, every start he's had at the U.S. Open. He has 3 second place finishes in majors. The guy is pretty much due, right? I mean, he's just excellent at golf. He's one of the best in the world at it, and it's a matter of time before he comes through and wins his first major. And now for my bread and butter play, guys. We have Louis Oosthuizen, an $8,100 golfer who's just a staple of these major championship events. The last time we saw him play was at the PGA Championship, and he pretty much almost took down Phil. I'm glad he didn't. I was really rooting for Phil there. But it's just not a surprise to see him every single time we have a major. It's this skill set that I think that translates. He's one of the best putters in the world. He's actually been the #1 statistical putter in the world this year. He's always been one of the best around the green players. But most of all this year for Louis, he's just been really, really accurate off the tee. He's been putting himself in position to succeed. His irons haven't really been there. The irons really haven't ever been there for Louis, to be honest with you. But he's not really going to need them this week. He's somebody who excels with that short game. He doesn't put himself in too much trouble. And at a course where accuracy is going to be a premium, especially off the tee, I'm going to be all in on him. He's just always seems to find himself in that top 5, top 10 at these major championships. And if he does that at the $8,100 price tag, he's going to blow away his value. So I love him this week. I love him in the betting market as well. And I'll have plenty of exposure to him in both markets. And now for my value play. My value play this week was somebody I would have been all over last week, but he was priced just way, way too high for my liking. And that is Matt Fitzpatrick, who's priced at $7,800 this week, almost $3,000 less than what he was last week at the Palmetto Championship. He's coming up off a top 10 finish there at the Palmetto, and he enters the U.S. Open as an intriguing option because of just how good he's been driving the ball of late. If we take a look at how he's been driving over this season, not even just over the last 2 months where he's done even better, he's gaining 0.45 strokes per round off the tee. That used to be a weakness of his. We used to look at Matt Fitzpatrick and just hope that he was a neutral off the tee player, but now he's an absolute stud off the tee. And if we take a look at how he's doing that, it's not with distance. He's somebody who's just above the average on tour in terms of distance. He averages 310 yards off the tee, but he's somebody who's been deadly accurate. He's been hitting 78% plus of his fairways in every event that he's played. And this week at the U.S. Open, especially at Torrey Pines with this long rough, that is going to pay huge dividends. And on top of having that top really, really accurate driver with Fitzpatrick, you have somebody who's an excellent short game player. He's gaining 0.69 strokes per round on the greens, making him top 10 in the field. And he's also been really good around the green and half decent with his irons. If he's able to bring the irons this week, if he's able to even gain just 1 or 2 strokes with them, I think he top fives. It could potentially even be a dark horse pick to win. I believe he's in the 75 to 80 to 1 range. I definitely think he's worth a gander at your sports book for that. But I definitely like him to top 5, top 10, and be really good in your DFS lineups at $7,800. My diamond in the rough, guys, is going to be Brian Harman, a $7,400 golfer who has a very similar skill set to Matt Fitzpatrick. Brian Harman's also somebody who comes in, a deadly accurate driver of the golf ball, somebody that leans on that short game to get the job done. And to be honest with you, that's exactly what I'm looking for this week, especially further down the board. Harman's also been really excellent of late. He comes in with 4 top 18 finishes out of his last 5 starts, and he also comes in gaining 0.37 strokes per round around the green. The only hole I can find in his game is his iron play. He's just above a neutral iron player this year on tour, but I think that's going to get the job done this week. The main thing to avoid is the trouble off the tee. You're going to be avoiding those bad putters that are going to be bleeding strokes on the greens. And if he's able to come out at least a neutral rate with the irons, I think he makes the cut. He posts a top 25 finish. And in this range, when we're looking for diamonds in the rough, that's really all we're looking for. Again, if he does get some hot irons, he's done it from time to time. We saw it at the match play. He could very well top 5 or even win. So I definitely like him as a flyer a little bit further down the board. And if he's able to do anything like he did in 2017, I think we'd all be thrilled. He came second place that year, and again, the sky's the limit for him at the U.S. Open. And finally, my flyer pick all the way down the board. We have Patrick Rodgers, a $6,500 golfer who's also another one of California's finest. So Patrick Rodgers, he went to Stanford. He was a prolific winner at Stanford, which is great to see, just a little bit up the road. And I really think he has top 10 upside here at Torrey Pines. A lot of the reason that I think he has the top 10 upside is because of just how good he is on the Poa Annua surface. If we take a look at the best putters in the world on the surface, Patrick Rodgers is number one. He's gaining 0.89 strokes per round on the surface, and just to make sure he has enough of a sample size, that's over 36 rounds. He is tied for the most rounds on the surface of anyone in the field. A lot of that has to do with him being a local. He's played a lot of those tournaments in the area, and I really think that he likes the surface and he has familiarity on it. Not only did he go to Stanford, he also grew up in the California area, the Southern California area to be exact, where you see a lot of these golf courses with the POA surface. So I definitely think he's going to get back to his putting ways on the surface. And just to take a look at his recent form, he's also been coming in great form. Last week he was great from tee to green, was good around the green, but just couldn't buy a putt. That was at the Palmetto Championship, where we did have obviously a different type of grass. And I think getting back on the POA surface will give him that familiarity, and he can get back to being a very positive putter. But even more so, and what's even more exciting about Patrick Rodgers, is that he's somebody who's very accurate off the tee. He's also somebody who has a lot of distance off the tee. If there's really anything you could say about Patrick Rodgers that isn't ideal, it's his iron play. And at Torrey Pines this week, I think iron play is going to be a little bit less important than it is on a typical week, and that falls right into his playbook. He's definitely somebody I'm going to be taking some chances on a little bit further down the board. But to be honest with you, I'm not willing to go further down the board than 6,500. Past that point, you're dealing with guys we've never seen before on tour. You've never even seen on the Korn Ferry Tour some of these guys. And at least with Patrick Rodgers, you're getting a PGA Tour regular, somebody who's a local, somebody who's at least familiar with the golf surface, and somebody who's coming in, made a few cuts of recent. So I like him as a flyer, and he'll be in a few lineups for me. Thanks for watching, guys. That's all I've got for this year's US Open preview. Let me know in the comments who you guys think misses the cut at this year's US Open. I know I usually ask who's going to win the golf tournament. I think that's a little bit difficult this week given all the studs we have, but let me know who the stud is that misses the cut. For me, that's Bryson DeChambeau. I think he's going to struggle mightily on these POA surfaces. He has to this point of his career, and I think the inconsistency is just going to mess with his head and his calculations a little bit. But let me know who your pick to miss the cut is. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, guys, if you guys enjoyed the content. It really helps me out. It also makes sure that you can see my content as soon as I post it and get it out there. But with that being said, guys, good luck, and I will see you guys next week.